Is there any other experiences you went through that kind of shaped who you became?
Yes. So when I was 25, I was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, just walking down the street late at night to the little store, and I was grabbed and thrown and then beaten and raped. That was, that can be game changing. And I suppose it was in my life, but it taught me a lot. It was also the opportunity to really employ this resilience that I feel like had been always ingrained in my psyche.
Did they find whoever did it?
They did eventually. But it's so interesting because, to be able to have justice, right, is amazing. But I knew that I couldn't wait for justice for me to get through this. And what I learned from that was you don't look to get over things. I had to look to get through this and recognize that this is now a part of my life story.
Nancy, so I always start my podcast off with a quote. This time I'm going to start with a quote and a question. So the Dalai Lama says, "The very motion of our life is toward happiness, that it's something we're all seeking, whether we realize it or not. In your own life and work, what does happiness come to mean for you?"
Happiness for me is knowing that I can take the deepest breath wherever I am, whatever I'm doing. And happiness for me is also something that I've learned that you get to create over and over again throughout the day.
I love that. What's one thing today in this current state you're in your life?
Yeah.
What is something that makes you truly happy?
Well, to sound really sappy, that I get to wake up with my husband every morning because he's amazing. And we have so much happy together. I think watching my company grow and watching the changes we're making right now to ambition so that our students can really thrive.
Talk a little bit about ambition and the work you do, your company.
Okay, so my livelihood is I'm a luxury handbag designer. I have an ultra luxury made in the USA brand that's 25 years old now. And then ambition is kind of my heartbeat. It's an entrepreneurial program for disadvantaged youth. And we really work on giving our students access, exposure, and empowering them with the tools necessary to make it in this world. And we work mostly with juniors and seniors in high school.
That's amazing. It's amazing work. Is there a specific success story that's come from that you can think of?
Oh yeah, definitely. We have a number of them. We have students. We have a student now that's a VP at Google. We have a student. She was the student we always joked that we thought was going to burn the school down, and she's in her late 20s now. Had a baby. Thriving in this world. Another student of ours, her name's Yessie. We thought, we could barely peel her away from her chair in the back of the room. And she's now a college graduate and working a great job in the nonprofit sector in Las Vegas. And there are many of those.
Yeah.
I'm so fortunate because I stay in touch with so many of our students.
That's amazing. Thank you for doing that and contributing to creating a better future for our young people, especially in underserved communities and stuff like that. I think it's so important, and especially we're blessed to have opportunity to pass that on to those that don't, especially kids. So
yes.
Thank you for that.
Oh, it's a big team effort. I'm so lucky. Yeah.
No, I get it. And so I want to go back a little bit into your life, maybe some unhappy moments, some things that you've battled through. I'm pretty sure you've had many battles and that you've dealt with in your life. But going back to those pivotal moments in your life, impact moments, I call them sometimes, that kind of set the tone for where you go and who you become. Let's talk about some of that.
Okay. So when I was in 7th grade, my mom became very ill and ended up in the hospital for the better part of 4 years. So 2 years, in and out of a in a low grade coma, and the next 2 years in and out of the hospital. I'm still having multiple surgeries, and after 4 years and 13 surgeries, she rallied, and she ended up living a life. I mean, I think when your life is taken away from you that way for that long, you end up with a conviction to live like nobody else has. So I saw the worst of it. I was so young that I never really understood. They would tell me they didn't think my mom was going to survive, but I couldn't grasp that. So it was very different for me than like for my father. And my sister's older, so she was already out of the house for the better part of that. And so it's so tricky when I tell the story and I think, oh my gosh, how awful. But I don't remember it being like that, because I was also very fortunate to have a family that wanted to make sure I understood that life still goes on, and that I couldn't turn my life into what happened to my mom. I had to keep thriving.
Yeah. And how old were you around this time when your mom was going through this?
So I was about, for the better part of it, 12 to 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
12 to 15.
12 to 15.
Yeah. And like seeing your mom go through that, but then have this like new like zest for life, resiliency that comes from an appreciation for living. Seeing that happen, what did that do to you in your young mind when you were seeing that? Did it do anything to influence who you are today?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, firstly, it really sort of set up my independence, because it was just, I was a young girl, and now my dad would, he'd go to work, he'd go to the hospital. It was the two of us for a lot of that time. But what it told me was that life is right now in the moment. And that what you have we say that, you hear people saying that all the time, but I was really living it. And I think because of that situation. So it's something that's definitely carried on for me. In fact, to a point where I used to date this guy. I remember one day he said to me, "Oh my God, you're so caught up in like that every moment could be your last moment." He said, "Isn't that fatalistic?" And I said, "I think it's the antithesis of fatalism. It shows I'm so excited about what I have, because I know it could be gone tomorrow. And I don't live in it could be gone tomorrow, but I feel like that scenario definitely set the stage for me. I mean, I think I came out of the womb pretty positive, but this really reminded me. And what it told me is, I get to choose. Do I happen to my life, or does my life happen to me? And I learned at that point that you don't just get to make that choice every day. You have to make that choice every day.
Yeah, I was just talking to the men in my men's group this morning. At the end of our group, well, first of all, it's a group of like 20 to 30 of us. We meet up every Wednesday morning in Santa Monica. We get together and we just break off into groups of like 4 or 5 and talk about where we saw God in our life throughout the week. And so people start talking about positive stuff, and then negative things come with that as well, because we go through things weekly and then we are able to overcome them. So people talk about that. At the end of it all, I was like, well, I look at life that like it's not neither good or bad. It just is. And it's an adventure. And ever since I've looked at life like that, and I have this realization that it's so short, and that like I'm so blessed to have what I have, and have freedom, the ability to just like drink cold water when you didn't really have that for years. You appreciate every little thing, and you appreciate the moment. And so for me, I had to go through this traumatic experience to realize that. And you, in some aspect, had to go through something because you saw your mom, and you start to have a more appreciation for the moment. Yeah. It's a powerful. That's a powerful message for people out there who are going through things. Like, you just got to be grateful for the moment, right?
Yeah, and I think you have to remember too that when you're going through these things, like I believe that we can hold two truths. So, I always, and everyone who knows me will attest to this, I'm Happy Nancy. So even when I'm going through something really challenging, I'm still Happy Nancy. I'm just Happy Nancy going through that. Because what people would say to me all the time is, wow, how did you learn to put on such a bold face or a brave face or a happy face? And I said, because I'm still that person. I'm, again, just that person going through something challenging.
Yeah.
And I feel like that knowledge and that habit for me, I'm so grateful for.
Yeah. And like, is there anything that you do daily, any practices? Like, what is your, like, is there anything that you do to help you to maintain that happiness or remind yourself of that or something? Because those are valuable tools that I'm certainly I would love to know.
Yeah.
Maybe I could implement other people out there, because sometimes I've realized through working with people so much is that people just don't know sometimes what to do.
Yes.
So when they don't know what to do, they just default back to their regular habits and ways that lead them down that continuous negative path that they've been on. But once I started to learn about new ways to replace my old behaviors and practices and meditation and all these things, it helped me to shift my thinking. So is there anything that you do?
Yes, I have a few things. And one, I'm very simple. I'm a big believer in simplicity. I feel like we live in this world that throws enough at us that of all the things I can control, I need to control. So I always remember, firstly, that our challenges don't dictate our constitution. I think about that throughout the day. So I've never purchased a gratitude journal. Because what I realize is, firstly, I have very bad handwriting. I get in the shower every morning and I think about all the things that make me happy in this world. And that's my way of sort of starting my day being grateful. And the thing I do, though, probably 4 or 5 times a day, it's called Stop and Smile. So it's an acronym. And it's just a reset. And I do it honestly 4 or 5 times a day. I walk into another room without my phone and I sit down, and it stands for settle down, take a breath, own it, poof. And the poof came from when I was a little girl. I would do this with my dad. It was like, okay, reset. Yeah. And then when you finish that, you smile, because for the moment you smile, you cannot be sad. Yeah. Try it. You can't. It just doesn't work. And, well, it does when you give a half-assed sarcastic smile. Yeah. But when you smile from your gut, for that moment, you cannot be sad. Yeah. So that's what I do. Stop and smile.
Love that. That's amazing.
And it's so simple. Like, nobody doesn't have a minute 5 times a day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just something like that that can turn something, you know, a negative framework into a positive one. Yeah. And I love the idea of the poof because it's like I have something similar that I tell myself. It's kind of like a mantra, like hit the reset button. So like anytime I'm like, okay, something just happened that's just like weighing on me, or it's like it's a challenging thing I'm going through, I just like, all right, I'm just going to hit the reset button and start over, right? It's never too late to do that. I mean, regardless of where you're at or what situation you're in, and those practices certainly help having those in mind. Yeah. Now, after like about, I would say like once you get to the point where you're like, you're a teenager, is there any other experiences you went through that kind of shaped who you became?
Yes. So when I was 25, I was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, just walking down the street late at night to the little store, and I was grabbed and thrown and then beaten and raped. And that was, you know, that can be game-changing, and I suppose it was in my life, but it taught me a lot, and it was also the opportunity to really employ this resilience that I feel like had been always ingrained in my psyche. Yeah.
Wow. Did they find whoever did it?
They did eventually. There were 3 attacks in the area, and they were sure it was the same person for all 3. Yeah. He was only convicted on one other gal who was actually knifed. So, but you know, it's so interesting because, I mean, to be able to have justice, right, is amazing. But I knew that I couldn't wait for justice for me to get through this. And what I learned from that was you don't look to get over things. I had to look to get through this and recognize that this is now a part of my life story.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. Shortly after it happened, I was on the freeway, and I heard this ad for, at the time, this was in the 80s, the Rape Crisis Center was really the only means to, like, help for anybody in that situation. But I heard this ad, and it was this sort of droning gothic music, and then you hear a woman in the background say, I was raped and I'll never be able to be with a man again, or something like that. And I remember thinking, and I called my folks right afterwards, I said, I feel like that was a directive, but I don't feel like that. I'm not going to be that person. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and somebody, you know, I don't know what's going on in their life. Like, we never understand what's going on in other people's lives. And it was so interesting for me to realize, like, I'm in control of this now. How do I want this to impact my life? And so for me, I had to put it into a space where I realized this was one horrible night, a horrible incident, but I had nothing to do with it other than I crossed paths at the wrong place at the wrong time. And so that was the lesson for me. And what I did that I think helped me a lot was I started speaking to a lot of groups at self-defense schools and in arenas like that where I could speak to women who had been through this and talk about what they were feeling. And but it was another thing that I just recognized, again, my life is short. How much of this do I dedicate? And, you know, there's something so interesting, right? People always say, well, you have to cry, you have to go through it. As if you go through something, or something happens, you go through it and you get over it, and then you move on. And what I've realized in my life is I can go through it while I'm still living my life. Because I don't want to look back and say, well, I gave up 2 years for that and 3 years for this. And also, I don't know that there's this finite day that you go, now I'm good. And so so that really set me up to realize I can handle what's thrown at me.
Thank you for sharing that too, being like so vulnerable about that, because I know so many women keep those things secret, right? For whatever reason. Maybe it's shame, even, you know, PTSD could develop from that. So guilt, all that, and they don't say anything, and they're like how you said, you started speaking on it, and you shifted something that was so horrible into, now I'm going to be a spokesperson, advocate for others, and talk about my experience. And that's kind of healing in itself, you know, and you relinquish that the control that the person that did it to you has, if you know what I mean. Like, you're not gonna let that keep you from ever being with another man, because in that they have the control still. So like, I completely understand that, and that's a powerful message for young women out there, or men who've been through something similar. And what would you say to those young people or older people that goes through experience like that, but let's say they're keeping it a secret right now, and they're holding on to it, and they're not saying anything? What would be your advice to them?
My advice would be, and from my experience, is, so I think people hold on to it for shame, but I don't know, I've never experienced anyone reacting with any way other than gratitude and appreciation for people who speak about this. And what's interesting is, if I were mugged, or if someone was raped and is keeping it to themselves, if they were mugged, they wouldn't, right? It's as soon as you bring the sexual assault in. But I think what I would say to them, and I knew what was so clear for me, was, again, I had nothing to do with this. I just was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I think this is really important, and I've said this many times, like, I was walking down a dark street late at night, and people immediately jumped down my throat and said, well, you can't blame yourself. It's like, I'm not blaming myself, but if my stepdaughters at that age said, I'm going to go for a walk down the street late at night, I would say, don't do that. Make a different decision. Don't walk through a dark parking garage by yourself alone. Like, I mean, so I feel like what this did for me was just also help me make different decisions. And not one bit do I feel like that was my fault for doing that. But when you put things in context and say, would I recommend anyone walking down a dark street late at night? No, I wouldn't.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, if and a similarity for me, the ownership of the things that I did, the choices that I made when I was younger, even though I was younger, I am now choosing to learn from those decisions that I made that led me down the path to prison. Like, and it's not to say that, that I'm like blaming myself, because I was 14 years old in the streets. And if I know how 14-year-old mind works, it's like they just don't know, they don't see. But at the same time, it's a sense of like, you do it for yourself. Like, I'm gonna take ownership. I'm gonna realize what I should have done differently, because now it'll help me do that now, and then teach others what they should do, and be an advocate for. So I love that, like, ownership and accountability for the decisions we make.
Because I feel like it's liberating, right? When you do that, because then you realize in all of your, all of the junctures and the crises we have in life, what the world or my life has taught me is that if I take ownership, then I can resolve it. If I don't take ownership, then there's no possible resolution.
Exactly.
Because even, I was just having this conversation actually yesterday. Even if you're in a really bad relationship, and people say, well, it takes two to tango. I'm like, but that doesn't mean one person's not the heavy and the perhaps horrible person. But the fact that you stayed, right? And that's not a blame thing. It's like, where can you look at the steps you took and say, okay, if this were presented again, maybe I would do this differently. And maybe there are many people that say, no, not me. But I know for me, for my life, being able to look at every situation and say, what could I have done differently helps me, and it empowers me.
Yeah. And speaking of relationships, you and your husband have an amazing relationship. I had the honor of meeting him and you together and for dinner, and so I asked you then, and I would love to ask you again for those that have probably almost everybody in some way wants to know, what is some of your keys to like a successful, happy, good relationship like you and Michael have? I mean, it's amazing to see you two together.
So the first one is, and I learned this from my mom's best friends who were now married for 65 years. And we asked them, like, is there a secret? And they said, so you know how people say a good relationship takes hard work? And we both said, yeah. And they said, yeah, you know who says that? People not in good relationships. It's so easy. And so Michael and I always laugh because we've been together now 11 years, 5 months, 1 week, and 6 days. And we say to each other, when is the hard work going to start?
Right.
We have to be present. You have to pay attention. We have found that the secret to our love and fun and intimacy is we make out all the time. Like, like the early on dating hot and heavy makeout sessions. And I remember we talked to you and Sharon about that. And then the conversation went in a whole other direction.
Yeah, I know.
But one of the things we do too is, it sounds so cliche, we put our phones down. We look at each other when we talk. If I ask Michael a question and he has his phone, I'll just stop talking until he puts it down, and vice versa. Yeah. We have no phones in bed unless the other person's fast asleep rule. Yeah. It's just little stuff, but we laugh together. And we realize too that we've been fortunate to do a lot of great things together, but what we've realized is just being together, like, that's the gift.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's you said, I had another friend tell me that one time. He was like, relationship, when it's the right person, it's not hard. It's like you said, it's easy
when the puzzle pieces fit.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes when people are like, relationships are hard, or this relationship is difficult, maybe you need to consider that that may not be the relationship you need to be in or should be in. and make a decision. The problem is that a lot of people aren't willing to make that decision, aren't willing to make the hard choices in life to follow their heart. And I think that for me, since I've been following my heart, it hasn't been easy, but it's always been exactly what it needed to be for me. And I've always, it's been difficult because my mind, I'm such a logical thinker. I want to do the thing that my mind says to do first, but my heart is really truly understands what I want. And so I follow that more, and it's been working out. And
well, you found a good one too.
Yeah, I know. I've been gifted with so many amazing people in my life. It's like I sometimes I'm like, I can't believe like I've been so blessed. But then again, I'm like, okay, going back to, well, what am I doing? What decisions and choices am I making though? What am I doing? Like, how am I investing in myself and putting myself out there and actively being willing to be vulnerable and talk to people? If I wasn't doing that, I probably wouldn't have the people I had. So it also takes both sides, right? Like, you got to also put in the work and make things happen, right?
Yeah. And I think it sounds so slight, but the first thing I do when I wake up is like, I look at Michael and I look around and I think, wow, this is, I don't know how, but I have all this. This is amazing. Yeah. And you know the story, but from the beginning of our relationship, he was there for me after what I went through with my mom. That was so big and bonding, and to see someone have my back that way, it just builds something that's unimaginable.
Yeah. And do you want to talk about that experience with your with your mom?
So, it's so funny because I look back, I describe my life as like so easy and blessed. And in fact, and Michael and many people say this to me, oh my God, like, you're running 2 companies, you've been through the things you've been through. It's so funny that you call your life like so easy and blessed. So a little over 10 years ago, my mom was raped and asphyxiated and then tortured in her car. So she was killed in a home invasion. Took us 10 years to get the case solved, but we did. Words, especially, my mom, I was so fortunate because I had a great mom and a great dad. My dad passed in 2000, but he died exactly the way you'd want to die. Like, he got the first headache he ever had in his life, and the next day he passed away. And it was peaceful. He was living. He worked up till the day he died. And my mom had a career and friends and an independent life, so she was able to, she had a life to continue to dig into. And having, again, those years earlier, having been so ill, she was just always thriving. And then I got the call one morning. They found my mom's car torched 45 minutes away from the house. And it's just so indescribable. The first thing, my mom and I were so close, but I think no matter what, those are not words any of us ever expect to hear.
Right.
And especially like in the world that I come from. And my students say this all the time. I don't look like someone who they think they'll hear these stories coming from.
Yeah.
So shortly after it happened, it was headline news, and then it went absolutely quiet. The case went cold. And 5 years in, through some amazing, magical people, we were able to get the case pulled out of cold case. And then it turned out to be her neighbor.
Wow.
But it's so interesting what it taught me. So, you watch these news shows, right, and you'll see someone who murdered somebody, and then you'll hear the family say, we've forgiven them. And I think at least for me, I can speaking for myself, I never understood what that meant. I wasn't against it or for it, I just couldn't comprehend.
Yeah.
And just that sentence alone, I'm going to forgive the person who maliciously murdered my mother or partner, just seems like an incomprehensible statement. But what it taught me a lot about forgiveness. And it wasn't like, hey, dude, when you're out of prison, let's hang out.
Yeah.
But was such a clear reminder that we have no idea what people are going through, and what their story is, and what their background is, and how close so many people are to the edge. Some people, right, you'll hear about a suicide, right, of someone who, if you looked, their life seemed absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And you can't imagine why they'd want to take it. This man had an old crack cocaine problem or habit, and then he cleaned his life up, married, kids, nice job, nice home, turned his life around. And then lost the wife, left, lost his job, lost the home, and everything spiraled out of control, went back onto drugs. And everything spiraled out of control.
Yeah.
And what I realized too was like the sadness for me, for his family. His kids had nothing to do with this. His folks had nothing to do with this. I mean, it was just, and everyone can argue how one is raised, but that argument not aside, this was a human being who just went down a pathway that is, and it's interesting. I'm going to guess that even someone who did something like this, at one point in their life, could be in a conversation and say, how in the world could anyone ever murder somebody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he serving life in prison right now?
No, he's not, but he's older and sickly, and we eventually settled because it had been so many years, and it was time to move forward. And the truth is, no matter, and they had all the facts on their side, you don't know how a jury is going to
all the way to the last minute, right?
You have no idea. And what if somehow?
Yeah.
So we were happy with how we settled, and people would say, "Oh, it's so great, you got closure." I'm like, and we got justice.
Yeah.
Closure, you are responsible. Closure comes here, right? You're responsible for closure yourself, I believe.
Yeah. That's such a compassionate, like empathetic way of looking at it. Like when you look at his family and like you said, what they're going through, and the kids who had nothing to do with it, and the other, the other, it's like the ripple effect of one man's actions. And we used to talk about that in prison in our groups, the ripple effect of our actions. And the men would talk about, when I was in there with mostly lifers who had committed murder, and majority of them were gang murders. But once we talked about, like, it wasn't just that individual, it was all the people, their mother, their grandmother, their community, the people that have to walk to work and school knowing that somebody got murdered right there. It's a deeper look into it. And so when you say that, it really hit me, because that's true, like empathy, and that's powerful. And so many people would be bitter, hateful, carry that with them. We see it all the time. But for you, it's just, your perspective is just, it's really amazing. And it's why, like, when we first met, like, I was like, I wanted to get to know you more, and just, because you, like you said, you just looking at you, you don't think that you went through everything you went through. Like, you're always happy and positive, and people think that people that are like that never went through anything. Their life was great. Everything was perfect. But like you said, you never know what somebody's been through or what they're going through. And I've learned to definitely not judge a book by its cover, right?
Oh my gosh, that's like the most basic saying, and it's so, so true.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because practically, you're a very logical person. If one could show me how the anger and bitterness and lamenting and staying in it, if you could show me how that was helpful, I'd be all over it. I tell that to our students all the time. I'm like, if you can show me how your angst and your craziness and your anxiety and your anger, if you can show me how that helps, then I want in.
Right, exactly.
But no one's ever been able to show me that that's been a productive course.
Yeah. And during the it took 10 years, right?
Well, it went cold for 5 years.
Right.
5 years later, through a really crazy story, we ended up getting it pulled out of cold case. Then that took like another year or two. Then finally the investigation was back on, and when you realize like the legal system and why it went cold and why it was so hard to pull the case back out, it's just all like paperwork, logistics, ego, like everything.
Yeah.
But then we were back and forth in court for a year.
Yeah. Did you ever have an opportunity to confront the person, say anything to them, or speak something in that moment when everything was coming to a close, I would say, in the courts and stuff?
Yep. So it was really interesting because just sitting with him, like by him, this far apart in the courtroom, was really strange. It's just so surreal. But they had me read an impact statement. So I wrote a page to our friends and family, a page to his family, and then a page to him. And they called me. I had to send it in to the attorney, and then he said, we just want to tell you. He said, this is such a beautiful letter. We want you to be prepared. The judge will be stone-faced because she has to be completely impartial. So I said that I didn't write it for her. So I start reading, and what I said to him was, I wish for you forgiveness and redemption. I wish it in a life behind bars because this crime was so heinous. But we're supposed to forgive and practice redemption, and so that was important for me to be able to say that. And at one point, so I hear something, and I don't even know what it is, like a ticking. And then Michael kind of elbows me, and I look up, and the judge, there are teardrops hitting the paper. And I started to giggle because I thought my mom would be so happy right now. I made the judge cry.
Right. Right.
But there was something liberating for me to be able to say, I hope you find redemption. So that was a really interesting moment.
Yeah, exactly. And especially for a judge who probably seen and heard so much to I think that like in some way that judge felt like the powerfulness of like forgiveness and just your want, even after that heinous crime, to still wanting something good for that person as an individual to come to them. That's powerful. Not many people can do that. Yeah.
I just think of all the times that I've screwed up in my life, right? And sometimes that we own, sometimes we just sort of move on and we don't own, and then your life goes on. And but when I think about that in myself or the people that I love, I mean, we raise kids right to say I'm sorry, and to mean it and to own it. And yet I don't think we do that so much anymore. Like, I'm sorry. Because what I see now, especially on social media, is a world that as soon as someone says I'm sorry, everybody says, oh, they don't mean it. They're just trying to, look good or get ahead. So then I think, well, then why do we even teach that if nobody believes it anymore?
Right.
And so I think this whole idea of redemption is so important, again, even if it's behind bars.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And do you do any work with people incarcerated?
I've done a little with Defy.
I know, Defy, yeah.
Which was really, I told you some of the story was so crazy because it was on the way to the prison that I got the call that the case was reopened. Yeah. So I ended up sharing that, like I told you, with the inmates. And it was really, really interesting. And it was so fascinating because the day we were there was the graduation, and there were a couple guys that were getting out in a month. One was getting out in 4 days after 7 years. Yeah, so I feel like and it was interesting because a few of them said to me, how can you be here with us, like on this day? Because I don't think they're used to someone they don't know, right, seeing them as human.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure you had, like, the work you've done and how you've sort of flipped all of the ideals on their ear is amazing.
Yeah, just showing up. I remember being in prison and, like, where people would come in from the outside. We call it the outside world. It's like, I'll tell you, it's like another world. And people would come in to visit, just to speak to us, maybe do a group, be a volunteer. Like you don't ever forget that when you're in prison, because even like families and people that thought you could count on don't show up for you, and you don't hear from, or they fall off after time and you never hear from them again. So to have like strangers come in and give you time and be like really just compassionate and showing like care and all that, it's like those are moments that when you're incarcerated you don't ever forget, but then you also have like this feeling in your heart to want to pay it forward. So I'm big on like getting people to volunteer and to go into the prisons and to share their time with men and women inside, because you're helping in some way change their perspective on people, humanity, and even their own life and their worthiness. And so, yeah, I remember those moments and never forgot them. Yeah.
Do you know, it's funny, I don't think I told you this part. We played that like Step Back from the Line game. So it got emotional, and it was also really funny. And so you get so connected with everybody. So, of course, I'm a hugger. So I started hugging, and they're like, no.
You can't hug him, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. They don't like that. You can't, no touching, no hugging.
But I think I got like 5 hugs in before they caught me.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so crazy. I used to go to visits when I used to get visits sometimes. I remember I had a girlfriend at the time that would come visit me, and they only allow you one brief hug in the beginning, and then you have to sit like across from them. You can't touch them. And like there'd be times where like we put our hand out to touch each other's hand, and we'd hold it for a second, and then the guard like, now it's like, hey, go your hands. You're like, so you're like, you see this person that you just want to touch and connect with, and you can't. It's like torturous. So I just don't understand that. I get like if you're being inappropriate, but even just like hugging or putting your arm around, that's a part of human connection, and it does something for people in prison and healing. And so I remember that. So yeah, when you go in, you got to be very careful about all that stuff. But yeah, it dehumanizes you in a way when you're in prison.
Yeah.
You start to feel like less than human after a while, because you're in a cage, and then you're treated kind of like livestock, we used to call it, because they want you to like line up and keep a straight line and look straight ahead. Like it's almost like that mentality, and you can only have this at this time, you could only eat at this time, it's like all control. And then you can't touch other people that are from the free world. Don't touch them. Don't over familiarize yourself with them. And it's like after years and years and years of that, it's hard to come back into the world and reestablish that.
I cannot even imagine.
Yeah, and so for me, I love it. I came out into the world and just fully embraced it. And but yeah, I thank you for going back in, and anybody out there listening, I encourage you to go back in if you can and help, and you can truly help somebody's life by doing that. So what else do you have coming up? Anything new? Anything that you're working on?
Yes. So, I mean, handbags just fun. I go down the street and hang out in my factory and make pretty bags. But we've got some really exciting changes. They've been in the works for quite some time with Ambition. So we're working with Boys and Girls Club. We're getting some new programming going with them, which is really exciting. We're working with Rite of Passage, we're going to sort of merge as much as we can with Ambition, so there's a great home for it. And some travel coming up and some events and just, living. And
Rite of Passage, tell us a little bit about that. It's a great organization, by the way.
It's so fantastic. And it's actually so interesting, because I think what happens is when you start working with youth in the capacity that we are, like, for us, we just want to bring access and exposure. And so Rite of Passage is part of the GCM, the Guerrilla Community Movement, started by Henry Park. And it's a program so that the students that are involved have mentorship and access, and then they can actually complete something, which is so important for these kids. So yeah, it's really, it took us a while to sort of figure out exactly what it was and how it connects, but I think we're there now. And so we just spent last week with a bunch of the students. And but overall, I would say in a nutshell, these programs are all about access, exposure, for us, consistency, being able to get these kids to understand that if they want to do the work, which is a really key part of this, they can have all the opportunity that many others have.
Do you believe that like giving back and volunteering and being a part of nonprofit organizations and groups of people that do good, how big is that for like personal healing and personal just like purpose and personal fulfillment?
So I would say, and it's so interesting, I have this banter with so many people. So I never call it giving back. I just call it giving. Like, you're here, just give. Because at some point, right, someone gets off the seesaw. And the truth is, I don't have to give back. But I know it's going to feel really good just to give. And for me, it's huge. And not because we're like these great people doing these great things. It's just really fun to be a fly on the wall of anyone who's striving in this world. Yeah. And our program, we're every week from September to June. And there are 10 or 15 mentors every week with maybe 30 kids. And it's just really fun. We just become one big pod. Yeah. And so it just, I think it invigorates me, and it invigorates the students. And then the students, it's really neat. When they see the mentors forming relationships and building businesses together, the students feel responsible for that because it's them that brought us all together. So I just look at it as selfishly, like, and I know it sounds so cliche, we get more out of it than they do. I think we all get a lot out of it. And so I'm just glad I'm there in that capacity, and it just sort of fuels me. And what's interesting is what I get to see. So one of the things that we see now is this idea, right, that anyone with money is greedy and evil and ugly and all. And what my students get to see are these really successful people that keep showing up. And that is the most beautiful thing. And so, I just feel like it's just another thing that I do. And the success of my company helps fuel ambition, and everybody who works for me volunteers for ambition. So, I don't know if I answered that at all, but I just feel really fortunate to have it.
Yeah, I think the answer is in your energy for it, and your just passion for it. I mean, it's really the answer. I mean, everything you've been through, and now who you are, it just shows that like that part of your life of giving and being able to be a part of something fun and great. It helps to feel like there's more purpose here for us, and then I truly believe that it's like our. Like for me, it's definitely my calling. It's like a part of like I was always meant to be this way. Yeah. As much as so all the things in the past that happened, I don't begrudge them. I don't hold like this resentment toward it or everybody along the journey. It was just like it was all part of the process for me to get here, and I learned so much from it. And I'm still going back, reflecting back, and learning from experiences and stuff. And that's how I know for me, like maintain that. Sense of like freedom. I'm not chained by anything, including my past. Yes. Right?
Well, it's been really interesting for me too with my brand, with my motorcar collection. A lot of my clients now, because I get to know them so well, are volunteering and donating to the nonprofit. Amazing. So I've gotten to bring all the pieces of my world together. And then now my husband and I double date with some of our students that are almost 30 now. And, I still am in trouble with the fact that they can order alcohol, but they're almost 30. So it's neat to just have that running through my entire life.
Yeah. What are some things you've learned about leadership? I know I do a lot of leadership development, and I've created leadership programs and stuff, and I have a company as well that I'm leading. And just what are some things in leadership that you've learned having your company and just being who you are that maybe you can share with people out there?
I think what I've learned is when I felt like I really became a leader was when I was able to release everybody's input. And there's this saying, and I don't believe in this at all. I believe in a variation of it. People say, oh, the great thing about getting older is you stop caring what people think. And what I think is I still care what people think. Like, I want to be a nice person. Don't be a dick, right?
Yeah.
Like, be a nice person. What I've learned is to not be attached to what people think. So when I was decided one day I want JAMAH to be the first ultra luxury made in the USA handbag house, people would look at me like I was nuts. And I'd want to defend it and explain it and tell my story and why that was so important to me. And I realized that's taking up a lot of energy. And a good leader puts energy where energy is necessary.
I love that. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so there's no more defending that for me. Just what it is.
And your motor car handbag, right?
Yeah.
Talk about that. We were talking about it before this interview. It's great. It's such an amazing idea, and speak on that a little bit. And
So we got very involved in the car world around Rob Report, and it's so funny because, as you know, like, I Uber everywhere. I got rid of my car 11 years ago, but I love to drive on racetracks. I love to drive fast, and I love to drive fun cars, and I love the whole car world. And so one day someone asked me to make a bag. It was for a Porsche. It's a company called Gunther Works, and it had to fit a certain space, and we got some of the Pepita trim to put on the bag, and then we got featured. And then one day I realized, I think I get what this is for me now. I actually want to make bags that reflect these cars. I don't want to make bags for the companies. I want to work with the clients and give them a sort of nostalgia to their car. And in fact, recently I just did a bag where on the inside, I was telling you about this when we did all the door quilting, we filled the inside of the bag with that, but we also we do messaging on the inside of the bag. So we put the VIN number and then make and model of the car. But the idea is that it's sort of, if you know, you know. If you know that car, you'll get that connection. But what I realized is I don't want a bag that looks like one that someone would buy when they, buy their beautiful Rolls Royce and walk into the Rolls Royce shop. I wanted something that represented or reflected their feelings about the car. And so it's not been done. So someone I knew heard about this. I ended up doing a bag for his Alfa Romeo. And all of a sudden, it just had legs and life. And I launched the JAMAH motor car collection. And the fact that I'm made in the USA lends itself even more to that, because so many of my clients, even though their cars are made all over the world, they still care very much about made in the USA.
I love that. Have you ever done a Ferrari?
I actually am doing a Ferrari right now.
I asked because I'm going to come reach out to you when I get my Ferrari, and then I'm going to come do like a custom, I don't know about maybe a backpack or like a custom wallet or something like that.
It's so much fun. And then the great thing is when someone gets rid of that car, they still have this piece.
It's beautiful. It's art, really. It's beautiful. I love like how your process too, how you kind of just know the car and you see something within there that needs to go in the bag, and you found like your own niche. You found your own thing, and that's great. So before we go, I wanted to ask you, like, because it's kind of a thing I do. Two things. First is like, how would you want people to remember you? If you even care about that, how would you want to be remembered? And then a message to anybody out there who's dealing with a struggle in life that may be similar to something you went through, a message to them that you would want to leave them with.
So I would say how I want to be remembered is just for my happiness, my smile. That's it. I
mean, that's already going to happen. So you already...
So I've done that.
Literally, you could meet a person one day, and I'm telling you because it happened to me, and you would just be remembered for your smile, your happiness, your positive outlook, how you can, make another person happier just through your presence. That's already set in stone.
Excellent.
So you've accomplished that, and you're still here. So, yeah.
I think to be a little repetitive, but what I would say to anyone who's been through anything that I've been through are the three things. Like, you get to choose if you happen to your life or your life happens to you. I would say it's so important to be top of mind that your challenges do not have to dictate your constitution. And most importantly, to smile, because for the moment you smile, you cannot be sad. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to be sad anymore, but it changes your constitution. It makes you rise up. And if you can start stringing more of those moments together, you'll start feeling better more than you feel worse.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you and our friendship and in all the ways that we're going to, be able to build and create more impact in the world. And I look forward to bowling with you and Michael.
I can't wait. I mean, we've got to, the friendship part is the best part.
Yeah. And your story, in what you talked about, it's so much is there. And really the what I knew would happen is that, at the end of the day, even through all you went through, you can still smile and you can still be positive. And that's really what it's about. And no matter what people go through, it's just, try to still put a smile on your face, still look at like, what can I learn from that? How can I still be empathetic and compassionate, like, toward people and situations and myself. And that's what it's about. And when people are struggling, sometimes that's the answer. So thank you.
Do you think, because you're such an inspiration, but it sounds so simple, but I wish that as a world right now, and I mentioned this earlier, but that we would start simplifying rather than complicating.
Yeah.
Right. And people think when you simplify, like what I would always hear is, it's not that simple. I'm like, actually, a lot of times it is. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Not everything means something.
Yeah.
And we are allowed to just push through things.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's really the society or the people in our lives that make us feel like that there's, like it's almost like a limiting feeling, because getting out of prison, it was always like people telling me things like, oh, it's going to be difficult, or it's because of that, or you're going to be limited because of that. And I just never, I never really looked at it like, I just used to say, you know what, I made a mistake, and everybody has, and I'm not going to let that keep me from making progress. And as simple as that framework is, right, not having to overcomplicate it, simple as that is, I made a mistake, and I'm owning that. I made amends for that. I continue to do that. I'm not going to let that limit me. So yeah, sometimes there's always there's a saying, there's a saying, it's like sometimes there's a simple answer to a complex question.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you so much.